shoot the front one here.
Right.
Got it?
Yep. Perfect.
You get it?
Yep, got it. Here we are at MaHUNT's museum on Saturday, November 10th, 2007. There's a nice pair hen and drake canvasback, a double-bearded eastern turkey, a nice hen wood duck, a quadruple-beard eastern turkey, a greater Canada goose, a cackler, which is even smaller than a lesser Canada goose, and these two look very similar, but they're actually quite different. The second duck is a greater scaup, and the front duck is a ringneck duck. And if I can turn them slightly, you can see on the ringneck duck he's got a ring on his bill. And if you also look, you'll see that his white feathers come much farther forward in front of his wing, while the scaups stop just under the wing. And if you then look at the wing side, you'll see that the greater scaup is white, while the ringneck duck is gray on the wing. And then if you look at the neck, hopefully the lovely reddish ring can be shown on the neck. And he's got sort of a blue head, and the greater scaup has a little bit more greenish head. So, moving around the room, we have a coyote in pursuit of a drake mallard. You can see that the drake mallard is in crisis, but the outcome is still uncertain right now of what's going to happen. We have a great pheasant, ringneck pheasant, with very, very long spurs. That spurs mean that the bird probably is maybe 4, perhaps 5 years old. I've never shot one with such long spurs in my life. And those spurs are the same as the spurs which we'll move over here to the wild turkey. And hopefully we can show you that the turkey has similar spurs. As you can see, this is the one with the quadruple beards, but you can see his spur. And what you'll note is that the turkey is actually a pheasant. It just happened to be misnamed when it was discovered. But there are birds that prefer to walk on the ground instead of fly, and this is a sharp-tailed grouse. And what's so important about the sharp-tailed grouse is you'll look and see that by it, from the middle of its back to its tail, and you can see the little sharp tail, there's just a very, very heavy bunch of feathers. Evolutionarily, this is apparently because the falcons would always hit the bird there, and as they developed more and more feathers there, it protected them from the talons of the falcon. And down here we have a hen wood duck, 2 great big greenhead mallards, one with 4 twists on his tail. Never had one before in my whole life that had 4 twists on his tail, obviously age. And on the other side, and we'll see them from the other side eventually, we have a gadwall and a baldpate, or a widgeon, and he's called a baldpate because it's white on top of his head. But the hen widgeon and the hen baldpate are almost indistinguishable, but put the 2 ducks together. Let's see if we can go down and look at those. Before we get to those ducks, we'll wander into a room that gives people a flavor of stone sheep, which live in northern British Columbia, and as you'll see by the bases of the mounts, they live in gray shale and are hard to see. And this magnificent stone sheep, 40 1/4 by 40 1/4 inches, and in the back we see what life is all about, the nature's truths. Here is a lynx going after a white hare, and the way they do that is they knock the back feet out from under him and then grab the hare, but you can see the teeth on the lynx. And as we wander around, we'll see 3 wolves are chasing this stone sheep. Now they don't look very big, they look about the size of common dogs, but as we move around and get a side view, give you much more of a flavor of the size of these creatures. There is the stone sheep on his gray shale, with a picture of when he was harvested. And this is a look at the wolves. And you'll see how gigantic the wolf is. And a picture of my father, Lloyd A. Schneider, and myself with a 26-pound steelhead, which I hooked and Father fought and landed. And then a 24-pound steelhead that Dad did all by himself. And a plaque noting the Lloyd Schneider Stadium was named after Dad for the 10 years of his work he did pro bono to get a high school at McFarland. But again, here we see the size of the wolf and the variations in color from the not too light, not too dark color to the black to this one whose teeth are rather instructive to the very light wolf. Wandering into the next room, we have a desert bighorn sheep, which won the #1 award for Boone and Crockett for a 3-year period after it was taken. Picture of me after being harvested. You can see that there's a big chunk out of its left horn, which cost some score, but ended up in 179 2/8, and it was 181 1/4, but it probably would have gone 185 86. But that's the biggest desert bighorn taken and recorded officially with Pope and Young during those 3 years. And here he is walking up a hill, and he had been bothered by this ram, which I shot the year before, which goes 173, also ranks in Boone and Crockett. This ram had been just sort of bumping him and bothering him all the time, but you could tell this was the ram that was the boss ram. You can see the chunk out of the top of his horn from fighting, and as I wander around to this side, you'll see an even bigger chunk out of this side, and you see the massiveness of the horns from the side. And they were going single file up a little hill, and nonchalantly this bigger ram quickly turned and rose up on his hind legs, and with a little advantage of height and the hill, he bonked this one right in the front of the head, which knocked it out, knocked it right to its knees. And when it knocked it right to its knees, it never bothered him again. Nature is a fascinating place. And here are some casts, some sculptures of the horns, so people can see how big and heavy they are. They weigh probably about 40 pounds. And a lovely mount of 2 drake wood ducks and a hen, and ptarmigan as they're in their changing phase from summer to winter, where they turn all white. They're all brown in the summer and all white in the winter. Very, very protective way. And they're wearing monk's robes. They eventually get white angel's wings and monk's robes. Monk's Robes is a poem I wrote when I was hunting stone sheep. So we'll wander back this way. And these are, the one on the left is the ball pate, and the one on the right is a gadwall. And you'll see they're very similar, except for the wings. You'll see that the gadwall has a brown patch and a white behind it, and the widgeon has a white patch in front and a blue or green behind it. But you can see he's got a little bit of his bald pate and green on his head, while the gadwall has no color on his head. And then we can see the mallards and some white-tailed deer. Now we wander to the next room. Pictures of me in New Zealand with giant brown trout and steelhead caught on a dry fly. And a different view of the rams. While we're focusing on, and here's you can see a view of the horns from the side and how massive they are. And we're going to wander into continuing the motif of desert bighorns. Here is a giant desert bighorn taken with a bow and arrow in Nevada. And if you can see the size of the curl of the size of his horn, after he was shot with a bow and arrow, unfortunately he fell off a cliff and broke maybe 3 to 4 inches off each of his tips. But when he was taken, he was the 6th largest desert bighorn ever taken with a bow and arrow in the world, and the longest horn desert bighorn ever shot with a bow and arrow, for the next 5 or 6 years. And with the tips added, he was 166 3/4, I remember, if I recall. And with those extra tips, he would have probably added 7 points. He would have probably been 173, about the size of the other one in the room. Then here is a ram that was shot. There's the picture, and you'll see that it's desolate area in the Cabeza Prieta in southern Arizona, and he was shot. I was standing down on that mountain, and it was about a 400-yard shot up to the top of this mountain, and we thought the ram was a giant ram. He was all alone, but unfortunately he was a very small-bodied ram and very old, and he has lovely horns, but quite small compared to the others. Gorgeous, and they're red, and the reason that they're red is there's a plant called an elephant plant only in this little section of southern Arizona, and he rubs his horns on it and gets a very distinctive red flavor. And one of the biggest predators to desert sheep is the cougar, or otherwise known as the mountain lion. And you can see also here are 2 nice sheds of big mule deer, which is also one of the favorite foods of mountain lion. But you get a flavor of how big a mountain lion is compared to a sheep, and how it would be quite a battle with a mountain lion and sheep. And you also notice the mountain lion killed people, so you could see that the sheep probably is harder to kill than a person, but a mountain lion is definitely big enough to take a sheep. Turn the light on, and we have a Ross goose, a blue phase of a snow goose, and a very big snow goose. And we have 2 Dall sheep. And the geese are in the northern part of North America, Hudson Bay, and up in the Arctic. And the Dall sheep are the very northern part of North America as well, in the Northwest Territories and Alaska, so they fit the motif. This is a giant ram, 13 years old. Normally they never live past 10. And there is a 9-year-old ram. And this ram was almost shot with a bow, but ultimately taken with a rifle. Gorgeous, gorgeous white sheep. We'll wander around to get a little different view. And you can see the curl of the horn as well, and the broken tip from fighting on this one. That one, 13-year-old, obviously was the biggest boss, and no one bothered him. Then we have a white-tailed deer, not as far north as the Dall sheep, but a gorgeous white-tailed deer in a mode probably being chased and running, and probably has been running so long he's quite tired, so he's trying to breathe, with a great pair of antlers, which are not shot, but actually picked up his sheds in Montana. They go about 172, 173, which is Boone and Crockett. But it gives you a flavor of a white-tailed deer in its size, and you'll see that the white-tailed deer is bigger than the sheep. As you can see, 1889, and MaHUNT has 5 properties, and it shows where those properties were in 1889. The one that I find most interesting is if you read the one that says Lucinda, I can't see, Spottle, that is now done number 3. That was owned by the Manson family since 1853. And just to the right of it, you'll see Joseph Schneider. And then just above it, Michael Lally. My great-grandfather bought that obviously before 1889. And it is still in the family. My grandfather inherited, Harold, and then my uncle Milo inherited, and now my Aunt Harriet still owns it, but probably given to my cousin Susie. One day hope to have it in MaHUNT. And then the property there that says that's divided, Michael Lally, the part that's shaped like a boomerang, that was purchased by my grandfather, Harold Schneider, in probably about 1908 to 1912, and has been just recently sold. So as you can see, that Hook Lake has been something that has been in our family for a long time, and this is sort of a tribute not just to my father and mother, but to my great-grandfather, who had the wisdom to look at to see that this was a unique area both for farming and for hunting and wildness, and to preserve it way back in, he purchased it, we believe, 1881.